Jay here from Stretford Paddock. This is the Paper Talk. As you can see, I'm in the studio. We are live. So get involved in the chat and the comments and make sure you are hitting that like button. We're going to be looking at all the latest Manchester United news. We're also going to be doing a little bit of a deep dive into some of the latest stories linking us with strikers and which of those strikers are most likely to come to Manchester United. Where's the decision likely to be made? We've had a few journalists in this week speaking about the likes of Victor Osimhen, about the likes of Liam Delap. We've had Laurie Whitwell and Chris Wheeler both in the studio talking about those potential moves for those strikers for Manchester United. So we're looking at those players, looking at one or two others, looking at what journalists are saying, just trying to work out where do Manchester United go for a number 9. We know we are crying out for a new striker. Everyone, the one thing that all United fans agree on is we need another striker. Now, whether that is someone who comes in and just starts every game, whether it's someone who rotates with Rasmus Højlund, that is maybe up for debate, but we certainly need someone else up front to lighten the load. I said lighten the load. To score some goals would be nice because we are not scoring anywhere near enough goals. Loads of people in the chat already. Good to see the usual suspects. Harry Potter, Brian Casey, Chris Griffiths, Maurice Marshall, Gyokeres Trot, Santa Notch. Santa Notch says Friday, people. It certainly is. Right, let's start with Liam Delap. So, this was originally in the Daily Mail. I think we've got it from the Football Insider, saying Man United wishing for Ipswich demise in chase for Delap. It says, according to Daily Mail, Man United have held further internal talks over a summer deal for Delap, who continues to impress despite his team struggles. Now, we spoke to Chris Wheeler yesterday. He was here in the studio. We spoke and we asked him about this, about Liam Delap, because he went quite big on this earlier on in the week. He was saying, look, 40 million quid, this could happen. Now, one thing that Chris kept saying was about the fact that Delap is Premier League proven. Now, a few people in the comments picked up on this and went, how can you say he's Premier League proven? He's had one season in the Premier League. He scored, I think he's at 11 goals. It's a bit of a stretch to say he's Premier League proven, but he has played in the Premier League. He has scored goals in the Premier League. Some of the other strikers we've been linked with haven't kicked a ball in the Premier League. So I can understand why Chris was saying he's Premier League proven. I know some people go, well, it's a bit of a stretch to say that. But look, he's scoring goals in the Premier League this season. He is playing in a team that isn't having a lot of, a lot of wins, a lot of the ball, not really getting at teams, yet he still managed to get himself in double figures, which is pretty impressive. So I'm going to look at some of his stats here. So he's played 29 games in the Premier League this season, and he scored 11 goals and got 2 assists. So 13 goal involvements in 29 games for a team that have been pretty much at the bottom of the table all season isn't too shabby. And the thing I like about Delap is when United played against Ipswich, he's been a handful. He's been a player that's annoyed me a bit. Do you know what I mean? He's like one of those where you're looking at him and you go, he's doing my head in Delap. You can see he's got quality on the ball. He gets stuck in. He's a bit one of them, innit? You know what I mean? Like, he's got the dark arts in him, shall we say, and he's a handful. Now, sometimes when you say a handful, that means he's just a bit of a donkey who's not very good at football, but he is good at football, and you don't have 13 goal involvements in the Premier League if you don't know where the back of the net is, and you can't cause teams problems. A £40 million release clause as well is doable. Now, the only reservation I've got when it comes to Liam Delap is he's not experienced. He's not got a lot of pedigree. Yes, he's having a good season, but he's a youngster. He's 22 years old. Let's just have a look quickly at some of his other stats here. This is kind of like his breakthrough season. I mean, he scored, was it 8 on loan at Hull in the Championship last season, and then this season is obviously the one where he's been flying. So there's a little bit of a reservation for me there, because I do worry we are going to sign another young striker who might not be at the levels we quite need. He might get there eventually, but can we afford to keep doing this? We kind of did that with Rasmus Højlund, and after initial decent first season, he has struggled massively this season. Joshua Zirkzee, some would argue he's not a striker. I think he says he's a 9.5, whatever that means. But again, it's someone who was relatively unproven. He'd had a good season at Bologna, never played in the Premier League. I'm a little bit concerned that this might be a season where Delap's doing really well. Is he going to progress? Is he going to do what we want him to? When it comes to Manchester United, playing for Ipswich and playing for Manchester United are completely different. They're not remotely similar. Now, he might be one of those players who's on the cusp, who's like just hitting his stride. This is the season where he hits, 12 Premier League goals, or he ends up finishing on 14, 15 Premier League goals. Next season, he could get a big move and he could smash in 20 Premier League goals. That could happen. There's no reason to think that won't happen. I just have my reservations. Let me know what you think. Get involved in the chat in the comments, because I'm a little bit concerned that we're getting another striker who's not quite got that experience that you need. Do you disagree? Do you think this is different because he's got that Premier League experience of this season? Do you think that he can be a player who comes into the Manchester United side and does really well? Or do you want to see us bring in someone a bit more experienced? I will be getting some more experienced players in a sec, but I want to know what you guys think. Let's have a look. Loads of people in the chat and the comments. I'm just trying to sort of sift through what people are saying. Santa Knox says Evan 2.0 in this case. Is that Evan Ferguson a reference to? Evan Ferguson obviously had a breakthrough season, didn't he? We were linked with him, and then it didn't really happen for him. He's tailed off a little bit. Delap's slightly older, I think, than Evan Ferguson. Dan United 94 says, I like Delap, but he's another one for the future. Has potential like Højlund. We need a guaranteed prolific goal scorer. 11 goals all year is too big a risk, in my opinion. Now, the one thing that he's got going in his favour, other than the fact he's played in the Premier League and scored goals in the Premier League, is the price. 40 million quid for a Premier League striker is decent, in it. It's not too shabby. And let's face facts, Manchester United don't have a lot of money to spend. We have spent a lot of money over the last few transfer windows. You might argue, misspent some money over the last few transfer windows in particular. I know last summer was better. I know the players that we brought in last summer made sense, and you look at the likes of Delap and Mazraoui, and you think those are good signings. Maybe Joshua Zirkzee, you look at him, you go, is he quite what we need? But I think that he's certainly an entertaining player, just doesn't really score enough goals, but at least he's a player that he's entertaining, and he didn't cost an arm and a leg in sort of modern football terms, did he? Especially some of the other players we've signed. But on the whole, it was a pretty decent transfer window. I know that might sound like a bit of a contradiction considering where United are in the Premier League table, but it made sense for me. This window, for all the indications are, Manchester United can't go big. We've got to sell to buy almost. Marcus Rashford, Jadon Sancho, Antony could be going out the door. I think they will be going out the exit door. Maybe we have around 80, 90, 100 million perhaps to spend in the transfer window. If that is the case, someone like Delap for 40 million, that does make sense. Let me know what you think. Get involved in the chat in the comments. I do worry a little bit. Brian Casey says 40 million for a 22-year-old Prem-proven striker who is scoring in a poor team, and he's a proper SHIT house. No-brainer for me. That's a fair point. I get it. I do worry a little bit. Let's talk about Jonathan David. This is one that, out of everyone, this is probably my preferred one. Just because the fact he's out of contract, he's on a free transfer, and he has a little bit more pedigree in terms of what he's done over the last sort of few seasons. Now, with Jonathan David this season, if you look at his goal scoring record, it's been very impressive. I think it's 14 goals. I mean, in fact, we'll go into all comps. It's 42 games, 23 goals, 10 assists. So 33 goal involvements in 42 games is not to be sniffed at. But more impressive in terms of Jonathan David is he's been doing it for a little while now. He's had a few seasons, hasn't he, where he's been amongst the goals. This isn't just like a breakthrough season where he's just having one good season. I think last season he scored 26 goals in all competitions. The season before that, he scored 26 goals in all competitions. And he's on for those kind of numbers again. And I think you can see there, he's third in Ligue 1 goal-scoring charts with 14 and on 9 Champions League goals, it says there. So decent numbers there from Jonathan David, and he's been doing it for a little while now. And in terms of his age, he's not exactly old. He's 25, a little bit older, obviously, than Liam Delap. The only thing you might question is he hasn't played in the Premier League. Unlike Delap, who we know can score in the Premier League, we don't know that about Jonathan David. Does that put you off? Also, the age, a little bit older. Is this the best we're going to see from Jonathan David? I know 25 isn't the peak for a striker, but some strikers, can sort of peak around them. So let me know what you think. I just like the fact he's on a free transfer. The flip side to that is, are we going to have to pay him big money? Because he's free, is he going to want silly money? Which Ineos and Sir Jim Ratcliffe and everyone else who's associated with the club has kind of indicated United aren't going to do that anymore. We're not going to be giving out 300 grand a week transfer contracts. So let me know what you think. Stephanie Griffith says 100 live likes ASAP, please. Yeah, hit that like, please, people. Sainabu Hyadra or Haidara says we need only Osimhen or Gyokeres on that list. The rest can't handle our problems. I will get to the other strikers on that list in a minute. Natural Progression says, sorry, I've just lost it. Sell Rasmus, get Delap and Jonathan David. I don't think we're going to sell Rasmus Højlund. I think there's players that are going to leave this summer. I think, like I said, Rashford and Sancho and Antony will probably all go. Maybe there's one or two others, but I don't think that Rasmus Højlund will be going anywhere, and I think that would be a bit of a stretch. There was even suggestions that maybe Joshua Zirkzee at one point could be going somewhere, but I'm not so sure about that one either. I'd be very surprised if the likes of Rasmus Højlund and Joshua Zirkzee went anywhere. Get involved in the chat and the comments. Let us know what you think. Hit that like button as well, please, people. Let's talk about Victor Gyokeres. I've been calling him Gyokeres, but every time we have a journalist on, it says they say Gyokeres. This says gossip by Lewis Seeley. This is from a couple of days ago. We've sort of gone through the old stories doing the rounds about these players. This has been doing the rounds from everywhere. Gyokeres, T United looks like it's not happening. It just does. I think all the sort of papers, the journalists, everyone is indicating that he doesn't fancy coming to Old Trafford. We had it on Paddock Live the other night. It looks like he's going to go to Arsenal. That seems to be his preferred destination. They're crying out for a striker. I think his release clause is about, is it 60 million quid, something like that. So it's not extortionate. It's doable. His numbers are ridiculous. And I think in an ideal world, if we could go out and get anyone who is relatively available, you'd probably get Victor Gyokeres. The manager would probably want him because he knows him from his sporting days. However, it does feel like he doesn't want to come to Manchester United. And it is a shame, it is annoying, but you might even argue United might struggle to match the price. Even the buyout clause that isn't extortionate with the wages on top of it, that might be a little bit too much for Manchester United. We don't know if we're going to have Champions League football next season. We could win the Europa League, but if he's making a decision now, if he's thinking about it, Arsenal are consistently in the Champions League. For the last few seasons, they've been thereabouts. And also, Arsenal could realistically sell him the idea that you come to the Emirates, you could be the final piece in that jigsaw that we need to have a title with. I don't think Manchester United can say to Victor Gyokeres, if you come to United, you're going to help us win the title. Certainly not anytime soon. But Arsenal and Mikel Arteta could argue that with him. Also, he might just fancy living in London. I don't know. But I don't think Gyokeres is going to come to Manchester United. At one point, it looked like he would. It looked like, because of the Ruben Amorim connection, because we were crying out for a striker, because of the doable buyout clause that he's got, and because of the numbers he puts up, despite the fact he's a little bit older at 26 years old, it felt like that was a deal that could be done and made a lot of sense. However, strikers, prolific strikers, are in short supply. Lots of teams need them. Even Liverpool are looking at him. Liverpool are after a striker as well because Darwin Núñez hasn't quite done what I think they were hoping he would do. And kind of goes under the radar a little bit how much they spent on him. So, sorry, there you can see it, £58 million. It's doable, innit? Just, I don't know if it's doable for Manchester United. I don't know if we can convince him to come to Old Trafford. And it doesn't feel like United are sort of pushing for that one. Let me know. Get involved in the chat and the comments. If we'd have done this a few months ago, everyone was on Gyokeres, weren't they? Everyone in the comments in the chat, myself included, was saying, look, that is the obvious one. Get him in. Scoring goals for fun. He's putting up sort of Cristiano Ronaldo, Lionel Messi type numbers of a goal a game. Why not? However, it does seem to have cooled a lot. CTB says, we probably can't afford his price tag. Yeah, I agree. The real Juan Pedro says, Vlahovic for 30 million. It's like Beetlejuice, that. Is he going to appear? I don't know about that one, to be honest with you. Stephanie Griffith says, Arsenal still scoring Premier League goals without a recognised centre-forward. Front three, whoever they are, need to step up next season. Leroy the GOAT, with the comment that I love, says, bring back Danny Welbeck. I would love to see Danny Welbeck back at Manchester United. It just doesn't feel like it's going to happen. Should we talk about Victor Osimhen, I think, is next on the list. So this was one from a month ago. So we've got a couple of swap deals that we can talk about here. This was one that the Mirror had. Rasmus Højlund offered Man United escape route as tempting striker. Swap deal emerges. So this was the idea that Rasmus Højlund could go back to Serie A with Napoli. I know he was at Atalanta one. He could go back to Serie A, play for Napoli, and we could have Victor Osimhen. And everyone would be happy. Napoli get a young striker who has got experience in Serie A and did well there, and we get a striker who is absolutely smashing it and banging in goals and has done for the last few seasons, both at Napoli and more recently at Galatasaray. However, there's a little bit of a fly in the ointment here, just in the sense that swap deals are notoriously difficult for starters, right? Now, what I will say about the Højlund-Osimhen swap deal, that's now morphed into a Garnacho Osimhen swap deal, because Napoli want Garnacho, we want Osimhen, or we're apparently looking at Osimhen. Could that be the swap deal? Laurie Whitwell mentioned this when we had him on Inside United earlier this week. Now, swap deals are very difficult, and we spoke to Chris Whelan and he said, look, how often do swap deals happen? And he mentioned the fact that Mkhitaryan going to Arsenal and Alexis Sanchez coming the other way was probably the last time you can remember United being involved in a swap deal. In fact, that's probably the last time I can remember any major clubs being involved in a big swap deal. They don't happen very often. And Chris was mentioning the reasons why. For starters, it's not as simple as just saying, well, we want that player, you want this player, let's swap them. Because players have different wages, they have different signing on fees, they have bonuses and all the rest of it that might not marry up, they might not be the same. Then one player might be worth a lot more than the other player, so how do you sort of accommodate for that? In the case of Alejandro Garnacho, I'd expect him to be on lower wages than Victor Osimhen. Obviously, there's an age difference there. Garnacho is sort of 20, I think. Victor Osimhen is like in his mid-20s. So how do you do that? How do you work that one out if you're going to do it? Does someone have to pay a fee? It's complicated. There was even the suggestion that maybe if Napoli were to get Garnacho and United were to get Victor Osimhen, it might be one of those where this sounds insane, but we sell them Garnacho and they sell us Victor Osimhen. Now, you might go, what's the point in that? Why not do a swap deal? But with PSR and things like that as well, sometimes that makes it even more complicated, and that might be just a happy solution for everyone. Now, I'm still, despite it being a very unpopular opinion, saying we should try and keep Alejandro Garnacho. I still think there's a player there. I know he didn't have a very good game at the City ground. I know a lot of people are frustrated and annoyed with him this season, but I think it can work out for him at Manchester United, and I'm not quite there yet when it's like, oh, he's not good enough, let's move him on. I think there's other ways we can get around bringing in players without losing Alejandro Garnacho, but if it did push come to shove, I wouldn't be that surprised if Ruben Amorim and the club went, look, if you're giving me a sort of binary choice of losing Garnacho and getting Osimhen, if that's the only way we bring in Victor Osimhen, maybe the club go for it. Let me know what you think. This season, Victor Osimhen's numbers are, again, a goal involvement every game. I know it's Turkey, no disrespect, but it isn't an elite league. It isn't one of the top leagues. He scored 28 goals and he's got 5 assists in all competitions. But it's worth noting, Osimhen has scored goals consistently over the last few years. He is a goal scorer. He is a proven goal scorer. Now, he's 26. Again, it's similar. I think it's the same age as Victor Gyokeres. I'm just having a look now. Last season, he scored 15 goals in 25 games in Serie A, 17 in all competitions. Not his best season. It was slightly lower than the previous season, where 31 goals in 39 appearances in all competitions. He has helped, of course, Napoli win the league. There are some question marks about Victor Osimhen. Again, we were talking with Chris Whelan about this, but I do feel like it was a bit weird what went on at Napoli. I do feel as though, like, it's not really Victor Osimhen's fault that he went south there. I think that Napoli, the club, kind of turned against him unnecessarily. There was all that nonsense, wasn't there, like social media trolling by the official club's accounts. Racist trolling as well. And it's just like, what are you doing? What is going on here? How has it come to this? A player that was a bit of a hero there is suddenly getting trolled by the club's social media accounts. Very nasty, very uncalled for. He obviously fell out of the club. The club seemed to fall out with him. He wanted to move, wanted to get away. He ended up at Galatasaray. I don't think you can look too much into that and be too judgmental in sort of towards Victor Osimhen. I don't know how I'd feel if I was him and I saw what the club were doing there. So he could be a player that comes into Manchester United. I think he's the type of player that the fans would love, because some of the goals he scores, he gets stuck in. He used to pick up injuries, didn't he, by sticking his head in things and going for things he maybe shouldn't. I don't want to see him get injured, but he's a bit of a blood and thunder striker at times with some quality as well. So I think he'd be very popular. He plays a lot of games as well. There was some slight concerns when we were linked with him a few seasons ago about his injury record, because he does have a few injuries. But, I mean, 39 games last season in all competitions. It's not amazing, but it's decent. And he's played 32 games this season in all competitions. So I wouldn't say he's injury prone by any stretch of the imagination. Let me know what you think. Who do you fancy? Is Victor Osimhen one? Very populist type of player, that, isn't it? He's the kind of player that Everyone go, oh yeah, Victor Osimhen. Yeah, love a bit of that. Maurice Marshall says, if we end up selling Rashford, it will account for more due to him being an academy product. If we sell him, we wouldn't have to sell Mainu or Ghana. Dan Fenton says, Jay, have you heard Mount injured again? He needs to go. Not good enough. I haven't heard about that. Forgive me. We'll have a little bit of a look into that. Let's talk about, in fact, someone says, Melcher, no, he mentions Ekitike. Yeah, Hugo Ekitike. Again, we've got a story here from the Mail. I think it was a couple of weeks ago, last week, sorry. Man United target Hugo Ekitike drops huge transfer hint as major European clubs circle for the in-form Eintracht Frankfurt striker. I think it was Nathan Salt we had on the channel who mentioned Ekitike. Really a big fan of his. And also, this is a bit of a stretch here, but he said when he was asked what his favourite club as a child was, he quickly responded, Manchester United. Well, that's it then, innit? He's coming to United. If he liked United when he was a kid, he definitely is going to sign for us this summer. Again, he's doing very well this season. 19 goals in all competitions in 39 appearances, plus 8 assists. I mean, 27 goal contributions in 39 games is phenomenal. Was he 22 years old? I like the look of him. I think, yeah, if you could get him in, that would be great. Scored a hat-trick against England under-21s as well. Star is absolutely shining brightly now. He's got 4 years on his deal. That's a bit of a fly in the ointment there. So you aren't going to have to spend money on him. I mean, he's on about 50k a week, it says there. So you think wages-wise, it wouldn't be, ridiculous. We could give him, we could double his money without breaking the bank in terms of wages. We'd have to wait and see what happens in terms of a transfer fee, though. This is a possibility. I think Chris Wheeler mentioned him again as well. And he said that United were sort of maybe aiming more towards someone like Liam Delap because of the transfer fee. I think Ekitike, the sort of numbers being bandied around were around 60, 70 million, which kind of makes sense. Obviously, Liam Delap is less than that and has that Premier League experience that Ekitike doesn't. A good young striker. I don't think anyone would be complaining if we got him. Can we afford him? Can we, get the money in, or do we have the money to bring in someone like that? If you can get Liam Delap for a little bit cheaper, it makes sense, I suppose, from a sort of business point of view, to bring him in. Sorry, to bring in Delap. Let me know what you think. The real Juan Pedro says, nah, swap him for Xerxes. Tells you I'm not, I don't know what you're on about there, but I mean, yeah, I don't think there's any swap deals going on. I don't even know what that's all about, to be honest with you. Let's talk about a couple of others here. So we did a tweet earlier on today, or a post on X, if you want. And it says here, despite being interested in Benjamin Sesko last summer, United are now an unrealistic destination for the Leipzig striker. United are also not thought to be one of the clubs to present serious interest in Jean-Philippe Mateta. So this has come from The Athletic. We have been linked with everyone. That is one thing you've got to remember about Manchester United this summer. We are being linked with any striker that is remotely good and scored any goals and could be available. He's going to get linked with a move to Manchester United because everyone knows United need a striker. United, do have a bit of money. Might not have, 100 million to drop on someone, but we can probably stretch to 50, maybe even a little bit more, million quid on a striker. So it wouldn't surprise me if we were just linked. We keep getting linked with other players as well. Listen, Sesko, decent. Mateta, we saw him at Old Trafford, what he can do. We saw him this season. He's having a very good season. He is a good player. It doesn't surprise me that we're not in for either of them, though, for different reasons. So let me know what you think. Sorry, let's have a look. Let me know what you think. Do you think we should be in for either of those players? Who's your preferred striker or preferred option of the ones we mentioned? We've mentioned Gyokeres, doesn't look like that's happening. We've mentioned Osimhen, maybe there's a deal to be done there with one of the, maybe Garnacho going the other way, or possibly even Højlund, or that sounds unlikely. Also, Jonathan David is another one, and Liam Delap. Of everyone at the minute, it looks like Liam Delap is the most likely. Doesn't mean it will happen, though. There's a long time between now and the summer, isn't there? Lots of things can happen. Other teams as well need a striker. Almost every other major team needs a striker. Other than maybe Manchester City. I think Arsenal need a striker. Liverpool need a striker. Maybe even Spurs. I know they're lower than us, so you might argue, well, they're still classed as a major team. But you'd expect them to be in a hunt for a striker this summer, and you'd expect a lot of players to be interested in going there, because despite the failings, they are still a big club. So you're going to be up against it when it comes to some of these strikers. There's going to be a few clubs that are chasing after them. And that's why someone like Victor Gyokeres probably isn't going to come to Manchester United, because Arsenal are in for him, and it sounds like he's interested in going to Arsenal. Trending with a bit of good news. Bruno Fernandes. Bruno Brilliance. Bruno Fernandes is the EA Sports Player of the Month for March. Fantastic. I mean, look, is it 2 games in March? And one of them was a draw at home to Arsenal. You might look and go, really? But I love Bruno Fernandes, and good to see him winning. But do we know how many times Bruno Fernandes has won Player of the Month? That's his 5th. I remember once someone saying about Bruno Fernandes, oh, how many Player of the Month has he won compared to Steven Gerrard? Sorry, people just shouting things at me. Is that his 5th?
Yes, his 5th Player of the Month award, but it's his 8th kind of thing of the month in total, because he's won Goal of the Month.
All right, so it's his 5th Player of the Month award, and it's 8th thing of the month in total, because he's won Goal of the Month and all that. Right, so he's absolutely smashing it when it comes to things of the month. I love Bruno Fernandes. I don't buy into this idea that United would be better off without him. I think it's absolute nonsense, and anyone who says it is a dickhead. But you're entitled to your own opinion. I'm going to leave it there. Make sure if you're not doing, you are subscribe. Let's try again. Make sure, if you're not doing already, you subscribe to the channel. Hit that like button as well. We're going to be back later on today. We have got the Broom, and also we've got a chat with the 1958, because there's action planned for the derby. Yes, there's going to be a sit-in at the derby. The fans being asked to stay behind and sort of let the Glazers and Ineos and everyone else know that we are not happy with the way United fans are being treated. So you can check that out later. I've been Motty. This has been the Paper Talk. Thanks for watching.